Hi everyone, my name is Anthony Dobransky and I'm here to do a workshop on business class tarot and on tarot in general. Business class tarot is my own deck. It is a modern tarot deck with a business theme, really suitable for questions about work, about career issues, professional issues, where you want to be in your life, personally, professionally, monetarily. That's what it's aimed at. I'm going to stay here until I get some people coming in, but in about 1 minute, I'm going to start talking about the tarot itself. So if you're watching this on a later video broadcast, you can at least get something out of it, at least a little bit of education. So first, I want to talk about the tarot. Tarot cards are, oh, yay, here's Kay. Kay, hello, welcome. So there's you and me right now. I can see you.
I can see you.
I've started talking a little bit, introducing myself, and I'm about to talk a little bit about tarot cards in general for the benefit of people who are viewing this video later. And I hope some people come to join us and get a reading.
I think Ellie was going to try to catch this one.
Good. Well, I hope a lot of people come because I am ready to predict.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so first let's talk about tarot cards. Tarot cards began as playing cards. Tarot cards, there are 78 of them. It's a little bit more than a standard playing card deck because in addition to the 4 suits that we're used to from playing cards, tarot cards have these extra cards which are known usually as the major arcana. In my business class tarot deck, I call them the executives. And we'll get to what these cards mean. But first to start, there are 4 suits in tarot. They're very much like the suits you get in playing cards of clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds. In areas closer to the Mediterranean, you'll find more often the suits are rods instead of clubs, or they often be clubs, but they look like actual clubs like you would hit someone with, not just a trefoil shape. Cups instead of hearts, coins instead of diamonds, and swords, little daggers instead of spades. The word spade actually means like a sword or a little dagger, although most of us tend to use them to dig in gardens instead of attacking people, but they come from the same root. Now, in tarot cards and in divination, these ideas have meaning. Cups or hearts are about emotions. Rods or clubs are about realities of the physical world. Swords, of course, are fighting, aggression, winning, losing. And coins or diamonds represent, matters of money, matters of making profit. These ideas have been used in tarot card divination, but in addition, somehow in Italy about 500 years ago, playing cards got these extra 22 conceptual cards. Originally, in the original tarot decks, they were very much rooted in Christian and Catholic iconography, but also in the ideas of the governments of the time, which were all monarchies, which were all royal. So you have the emperor, you have the high priestess, you have the pope, you have judgment. There were also astrological symbols because those tended to get blended into a Renaissance conception of the world. So the star, the sun, the moon, and all of these had meanings too. No one really knows how these other cards got in. My favorite theory, and because it's my favorite, the one I shamelessly advance as if it's complete truth, are that these were sort of like a public service announcement. Remember that tarot cards came from a time when literacy was not commonplace. You had a lot of people who couldn't read, but they could certainly interpret pictures. You might argue their visual sense was akin to what ours seems to be becoming in our very video-driven age, where we're very sensitive to icons, very sensitive to pictures, very sensitive to these kinds of elements as having meaning. And in the same way, these were probably meant as some kind of public service announcement, a reminder that, in your gambling and in your stepping out into the demi-monde and your attempts to see the future, you must take into account the truth and the eternal verities. And in the way that artsy people have done throughout history, they took something that was meant to educate them and turned it into an ironic commentary and incorporated it into their own games. So that's how tarot cards began. Tarot cards became a part of American life. Actually, I should mention that tarot cards are still a game. in large parts of the world, particularly parts that are either France or Germany or have inherited those cultures, like say, for example, French Canada, tarot cards are a real game. It's similar to bridge. And in fact, in Business Class Tarot, I have a huge guide. And in the very back, I give you the rules for how to play French Tarot. It's a card trick taking game like bridge, where not only the numbered cards and the royal cards, but also the arcana, the major arcana cards are assigned different point values, and you play with 4 people and you try to win tricks. But in these countries where it's played as a game, you can buy tarot card decks that are reversible, just like our standard poker playing cards, because they're meant so you can hold them and fan them in the hand. You can't quite do that with Business Class Tarot, but that's why on Business Class Tarot, I tag anything that's of a particular value in gaming in the upper left corner. Took my inspiration from Pokemon and other gaming cards. So it's a real game, but it also got to be used for fortune telling, because people have used everything for fortune telling. They've used tea leaves, they've used all sorts of other systems, the flights of birds, the entrails of animals. Of course, playing cards with their randomness and their openness to interpretation, with their pictures and their numbers and their weird symbols, are a natural. They still are today. If you go to New Orleans, you go to Jackson Square, you will find plenty of card tables set out by vendors who are doing tarot readings for you. It'd be very hard to throw a ball without hitting one in New Orleans. Still very popular. People enjoy it, not only for the fortune telling itself, but they enjoy the particular medium. And I think as we explore it, you'll see why. I think that we all respond to these pictures, but also to the system that even if you don't know much about, and you're going to learn a little bit more today, you're going to find out about it, and I think you'll intuitively understand. So some introductions to tarot cards for divination. It came to this country maybe 150 years ago, and it came as part of a big intellectual discussion that was going on in England at the time between people who were very, rooted in Victorian ideas of militarism, of expansion, of Christianity, and those who had a problem with it and who viewed it as an actual alien invasion force, who wanted to hark back to a pre-Christian, pre-Roman, more pagan tradition. Some of those names will be familiar to you. Aleister Crowley, who was notorious in his day as a magician and whose legend lives on. Led Zeppelin even dedicated a song to him. You could argue that Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath picked up where he left off in terms of theatricality and presentation. Other intellectuals wanted to argue that, at least we should recognize the pagan elements in there, the fusion of other mystic traditions that came from Europe, such as Kabbalah, a 16th century Jewish mystical tradition. All of these things kind of got thrown into tarot cards around the same time that they were being known in the United States, and they have become associated with our understanding of tarot. The most popular deck is probably the Rider-Waite Tarot. If you've seen a tarot card represented on a t-shirt or on a mug, it is probably one of the Rider-Waite editions, which were designed by Arthur Edward Waite, an intellectual and scholar who was friends with Crowley and other intellectuals of the day, and Pamela Coleman Smith, a very gifted artist who had a lot of different aspects to her career. And this was just one small one, but it's the work that has survived. Similarly, when I made my deck, a lot of tarot decks are created and designed by the same people, but I can't draw. So I was lucky to have a fantastic artist named Jamin Oil, who is also an advertiser and a professor of commercial art. Jamin's done a lot of different, both fine art and commercial art projects, which made him a perfect fit for a tarot. And he delivered amazing, amazing work that you're going to see today. So a little bit about tarot. I talked about the structure of tarot cards. All tarot cards have 4 suits. In mine, they are product, corresponding to the traditional wands or rods, product concerned with the physical world, brand, which quite understandably is concerned with the emotional, I should put it in the middle, with the emotional world, the world of reputation, the world of enjoyment, the world of devotion. Data, Data is the swords of my tarot deck. It is a world, it's about information, but it's not just information that you want to know for the heck of it. You want to deploy this information. And as for its aggressive qualities, if you think about the battles going on between Apple and Facebook and Google and all of these, new economic titans, you can understand how data gets its aggressive cast. And then finally, money. Money, the reward for your work. Now, all of these cards, suits, have the same structure. There's ace, 2 through 10, and then in a tarot card deck, there are 4 royalty cards, traditionally king, queen, prince, and, king, queen, knight, and page. In my deck, I use corporate terms. They are VP, vice president, director, manager, and assistant. Now, all of these have similar meanings across the suits. The aces that I just showed you all kind of represent the heart of the suit, the spirit of the suit. The sevens tend to be the most contentious elements of the suit. I'll give you an example for product 7. Product 7, you have here, a conflict going on between the automated robot and the workers who are simply not going as fast as the robot is. The 8s and 9s tend to be where the ideals of the suit break down. And then the 10s tend to be where the suit's ideals have moved into some other domain that the suit wouldn't approve of. I'll give you an odd example of that. This is brand 10. Now, it looks pretty good. All these people are happy and they're smiling, and you've got the same heart that's distant in the background as it is in the foreground here, but that's the problem. Here, the heart is in the foreground. It's being adored. Here, it's being appreciated for its social utility. No brand wants to be appreciated. They want to be loved. An appreciated brand it's like RuPaul and Ann Taylor. It's just not the same kind of effect. So all of these meanings carry through in different ways in the different sense. And in the same way with the court cards, the manager cards in my deck. Assistants, pages are always about helpfulness. The court cards are different things. The leaders, the kings, or the vice presidents in my deck are always bringing you solutions, but also with an eye on the future, whereas the directors or the queens are much more about the here and now. So as you use tarot cards, as you get readings or read them yourself, you start to pick up on these meanings, and they make it a little easier to understand where these meanings might be coming from. And that's the final thing I want to address. I'm going to take 4 minutes and make 4 points about tarot reading and divination in general. Number 1, there is something here. I can't prove it empirically. It's hard to prove something when half of the time the point is to give you advice to change what you're doing. So there is something here. I've had too many total strangers look at me in that kind of, that actually does kind of make sense way for me not to think that there's something there. What it is, I don't know. My personal suspicion, this is totally my thinking, is that objects of divination and a desire to talk to other people gets us in touch with something between us, something that human beings share, something that makes a common humanity, and that we can use that. What that insight is, I don't know. How tarot card works, I don't know. Maybe in a few hundred years, we'll have a better sense of it, in the same way that alchemy led to chemistry. People wanted to make lead into gold, and now instead we can make vaccines in a year for pandemics. It's a better outcome for the most part, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of understanding. Second, tarot cards are about power dynamics. Tarot cards are not a coin flip. It's not like yes or no, do this or do that. They represent concepts. They represent actors in a complex system. So if you're going for tarot cards as your form of understanding a situation, you are looking to understand the elements of the situation. You're looking to understand how those elements interact, how they affect you, why they have their power. Sometimes they have their power for institutional reasons, and that power has limits. A board of directors has a lot of say over a company, but just like a pope does over a church, a lot of that say is indirect. It's leading by example or by demonstration. They're not in the thick of it the way that a manager or a CEO would be. Sometimes the power just comes from recent success. You know, if you're the book that sold for your publisher, you're the one who's going to get the bigger ad in the paper next year. But that only lasts as long as your success is doing itself. But it's power dynamics, and dynamics move. So you might be coming into a point in time when it's stable and static, but it won't be. That's the whole nature of power. It's constantly fluid, constant dynamics. And the reason you're here talking to tarot cards is because you're looking for an edge on that. 3, tarot is minatory, not deterministic. Minatory is a great word. It means it gives you a warning. If I'm laying out a tarot card and I say something bad's going to happen, like, oh, don't cross any bridges. And by the way, can you pay cash? You know, that's not what tarot cards are for. Tarot cards are there to look ahead. But if they're predicting something bad, they're usually going to give you a context as to why that's bad and what you can do about it. Now, maybe you cannot duck the blow, but maybe you can turn it from a chest wound to a side cut. So tarot cards are here to give you a heads up. And finally, Zoom is a factor. And I don't mean this conferencing app that we're using right now. I mean the level of your perspective. If you're on top of a mountain, you can see that the Western path is easier than the Eastern path. But you maybe can't see that there's one patch of really sharp volcanic rocks on the Western path. You can just get a general lay of the land. Once you're on the Western path, you may be able to look ahead and say, oh, that's worse than I realized. Oh, maybe I should go over there. But you can't suddenly say, oh, maybe I should go back and do the Eastern path. Maybe I should, because you've already gone too far and you don't even know if going back would solve any of your problems. All you can deal with is the here and now. So in that sense, the Zoom, the perspective you're bringing to your question, is going to have an impact on the answers you get. It's going to have an impact on what you learn. So you can only find out so much. You only get a particular view. Now, if you're at home and you're using a tarot deck and you're doing your own readings and you feel you can interpret, you can get an answer and then query the answer and find out, well, so what does that mean I should do? And you might be able to get some more information out that way. But your question is going to, the scope of your question, the Zoom of your question, is going to define what that answer is. And so that's my 20-minute, turned out to be, well, 15-minute introduction to tarot cards, to tarot card reading. And if anyone joins us, I'd love to do a reading for them and answer some questions about it.
Well, and if nobody else joins us,
well, you just,
I can be your guinea pig.
oh, I'd love to.
I would be willing to let you read me. Yeah, that would be
I'd love
okay.
to do a reading for you.
At least that way, at least that way we've got something recorded that we might be able to share later.
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to do a reading for you now. In fact, I have it set up in that I'm going to switch my view from talking to me directly to a separate webcam I have over here on my desk, which is looking at my spread. And give me 1 second and let me know if you can still hear me. So it's going to take 1 second to go into my settings.
All right.
And change my video from integrated webcam to plugged in webcam. Do you see my tarot card deck right there?
I do.
And do you hear me still? Even though I changed the video? All right, good. So let me, how's the lighting in here? Maybe I'll add a little bit more light. That just makes glare. All right. So, okay, well, this is Business Class Tarot. I've been showing you individual pieces. This is the whole spread of them. These are the shuffled cards. This is my actual reading deck. Other decks that I've been showing you, I have neatly sorted for show. So I'm going to turn my own laptop over a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. And now, hello, Kaye Booth. How have you been? What can I talk to you about in terms of your own business and career questions?
Well, beyond this conference, it has been a big headache. I think things are going pretty good. So I guess, you know, I would be curious if I'm taking things in the right directions.
Okay, talk to me a little bit more about taking things in the right directions. Are you talking about your own writing career? Are you talking about the development of word crafters as a business and a forum?
You talking about the whole gestalt of it? What in particular is occupying your thoughts?
The whole gestalt of it. The whole gestalt of it. My writing endeavors is tied up with Wordcrafter. They're not one and the same, but they're all interlinked.
Okay.
So like what I'm doing now, let's see, we just had a poetry book I published through Wordcrafter. It's called Poetry Treasures, and it was developed from a blog series that Robbie started called Treasuring Poetry.
This is Robbie Cheadle, who's been part of a lot of these events today. Yes. Okay, great.
Yes. And she does the Treasuring Poetry every month. She has a author poet as her guest. She interviewed them and she read one of their books. And it's been very popular. And so what we did was we invited the poet guests from 2020 to make 3 to 5 contributions to an anthology. And we did a poetry anthology and we just brought it out.
Okay.
And we've actually had some pretty good sales with new releases. That doesn't tell you a lot because you should have good sales when you first bring it. But so I think that's going well. We just had the deadline for the 2021 short fiction contest because I run one every year. And the winner to that will get a $25 Amazon gift card and be included in the anthology, and then other contributions that were good, even if they didn't win, they could be invited to be in the anthology, which will be called Where Spirits Link. And so I'll have that coming out later on this year.
So it sounds like you've got a lot of irons in the fire. It sounds like there's a lot going on, and a lot of it is publishing yourself and a lot of other people simultaneously and working to build that as more of a business. Do you?
Correct.
So you want to talk more about that aspect of it and not so much about your own stuff or your own personal writing, or?
Well, this conference has been the thing that I've been just, focusing on. But this one is not doing as well as I had hoped. Last year, we had a pretty good turnout, and this year,
sure, yeah.
I'm not seeing a whole lot. And I'm not sure what, I think maybe people are getting more back into their own lives, and so they don't need to do the virtual conferencing now. I don't know, but so that's kind of where I'm at with the blog, which this all started from, Writing to Be Read, is actually doing real well, and we are gaining followers almost on a daily basis. So I'm real happy with that. But my ultimate goal, I guess, is to be able to take my writing and actually make enough living off of it that I can abandon the day job, because I'm doing a 45-minute to an hour and 15-minute commute one way, and I small rural mountain community, so therefore I have winding mountain driving and that type of thing that can be very stressful,
sure,
especially in the bad weather. And in Colorado, we have bad weather. But anyway, so that's my ultimate goal, is to be able. It's not that I don't like the J job, because what I do, but I need to be able to eliminate that commute and be able to make my monies from home.
Sure, I get it. So you've got a lot of things going on. You're hoping to make a transition. That transition is multiple parts. Well, this is the perfect thing that a tarot deck is designed to talk about. So I'm going to switch back to my point of view of my cards, and let's see what the cards have to say that will be of use to you.
Okay.
Here we go. All right, so we've done a lot of shuffling, so let's get started.
Sounds good.
All right. This is you, brand manager. The brand manager, I'll hold it up so people can see better. The brand manager is kind of a harried figure. As you see, that heart is kind of drooping into the coffee cup there. The brand manager is looking to present a facade of sunniness, but there's also a lot of storm clouds coming in behind them. And that seems to speak a lot to what you were talking about, where you've got a lot of irons in the fire. You've got a lot of things to juggle. You have your old career, your new career. Now, the thing that is confronting you that you are in the midst of, reorganization. Reorganization is here. As you see, let me get that glare off of there. Somebody is replacing their old tired body for a new golden robot body. But as you can see, one of these nurses is wearing a gorilla mask. That's not necessarily going to go as smoothly as perhaps we would hope for such a situation. So here, this speaks to a lot of what you're talking about. Reorganization is an energy that is giving you a lot of possibilities, but it also involves a lot of moving parts. Now here, what's crossing you? What is something that is either something you can use or something in your way, something you have to address? This is money assistant. I talked earlier about how assistants are a helpful energy. Money assistant is in particular a helpful energy that has a lot of history and a lot of knowledge. That's why this money assistant, unlike the other ones, is an older gentleman, why the tools they're using are older ones too. This is not a computer, this is, a ledger and an old-fashioned calculator. The money assistant has been around long enough to know what people value, to have seen things come and go. And this is probably a helpful energy that either you need more of or that you don't have. So that's one thing I think the cards are already talking about, is that right now you are putting a lot out there. And if you don't get some support, that's going to make things very difficult for you. That's going to bring back the storm clouds and the gorilla head we talked about. So right now, I would say that your principal issue isn't so much the rightness of what you're doing. It's that what you're doing it really a lot in a solo fashion, and you need some people to back you up. So if you don't have any in your life, look for some. If you do have any in your life, you might want to lean on them some more because you're going to need them. So let me make a little more room here now that we've talked about that opening situation of you in the card. By the way, I should say to the audience, the spread that I'm going to be using, I call it plus minus because of its shape, but it's traditionally known as the tree of life. And so we're going to be building a kind of a plus shape here, and then we're going to have 4 more cards lined up, and that'll be the minus. So beneath you, Money 8. Money 8 is a creative card. As you can see, this designer is just working in her own studio, and she is out there. Now, she isn't totally unaware of commercial reality. As you can see, she's got a shark on the back of her hoodie. So she's got, some sense that eventually she's going to have to be swimming with those same sharks. But Money 8 right now is just a place of creative flow. And that's probably a place that you've been coming from. The place where you've been making stuff, like you mentioned your anthologies, you mentioned your own work, you mentioned the poetry, you mentioned the blog. So you've been putting in effort. You've been putting in effort, and you've been putting in effort sincerely. Behind you, Product 4. Product 4 is a card of relationships, but they're very transactional relationships. This is not a warm and fuzzy card. Let me get a little closer, see if it'll focus better. This is a card where people are just making a deal. These 4 products are the trucks waiting to go out. They're each going to be getting something personal out of it for them. They're not mutually putting together a project. And maybe that's the kind of associations you've been focused on right now. You've been doing your own work in private, but your partnerships have tended to be the transactional ones. Your partnerships have tended to be, you get what you need, you pay your bills, you get your stuff, you get what you need, you put out an anthology, they get published. But there's not a lot of, people working with Kaye. There's Kaye getting stuff done and other people getting stuff done, and it puts out a product together. But there's not a lot of collaborative in this other than what is strictly necessary for the people involved. Above you, Money 5. Money 5 is a card of great imbalance. Here we have an awesome Olympic-looking stadium and 3 poor t-shirt vendors stuck outside in the snow and the cold, hoping to make a little bit of extra money. So the situation that you're in, you know that where you're coming into with all the hopes you've got is a hard business. Publishing is hard, culture is hard, getting this stuff out, and you probably feel yourself to be more like these t-shirt vendors right here. You're certainly not sitting in the box seats inside the stadium all warm and dry. You're there right now. And that's, again, you know, you've got your own work going, you've made some connections, but you're still in a hard situation and you need support that is more passionate, more involved with you and your ideas. Ahead of you, Money Ace. Now, Money Ace is a good card. Money Ace says that you have the energy that you need to get started. Money is the thing. You need a product, you need some emotional resonance, you need some information, but if you don't have the money, if you don't have something to light these things on fire, you're not going to get very far. So it's a good sign that even though your transactions have been transactional, even though the deck has been so far stacked against you, the cards feel that you're in a place to go forward. So that's a very positive development. And so I'm going to move these out of the way and lay down the final 4 cards of the reading and see where it points to. So next, the Experience. Now, the Experience is a very unusual card. The Experience in a traditional tarot deck is number 6, and traditional tarot card deck, this is the Lovers. But this comes from a time period where love was not simply an expression of romantic ideals, but it was a disruptive force. We can still see that today if you think about politicians and sex scandals. So here the Experience brings it in, where you'll notice that there's a whole lot of people in the background and they're just being felled by these lightning bolts. They're not having a good day. But 2 people have become superpowered. One of them perhaps with real joy about it, one of them with despair. One of them is, woohoo, they're going to do my screenplay. Woohoo, it's Harvey Weinstein who's going to do that screenplay, and I know what he gets up to. So the Experience is something that forces you into a new situation. It can be a difficult experience, it can be a positive experience, but it puts you in a place you haven't been before. So this is you, and this is an interesting outcome considering that you began this reading as someone smiling with their heart in their coffee cup. You know, you have gone through this process, through the efforts of your past and the things that are heading into to something really breakthrough. So that's a good card to have as an experience, but it's one that's tricky because, you know, you've caught the wave, now you have to surf it. Your environment, Money Director. Money Director is, I said before that directors tend to be more focused on themselves as opposed to, you know, the long-term effects. I think of Money Director as one of those people who work their way up doing the less glamorous side. They're not the stock trader. They're not the ones doing the big M&A deals. They're the ones crunching the numbers, but they've crunched the numbers to the point that they can see where things are going and they're ready to make a move. So this says to me that you're in an environment where this stuff that you've put together and your own transforming of your own goals into something new is going to meet a receptive time frame. It may not come right away. It may not come in, it may come, but it'll come suddenly. There's a move that you're going to make. Your hopes and fears, Product VP. Again, a very strong card. These are all executive cards that we're talking about now. Product VP. You'll notice that Product VP is not in an office. They are in a construction trailer with a bunch of boxes and a bunch of old coffee cups and a makeshift desk and some blueprints on the back wall. Product VP lives there. The Product VP is on that edge between delivering things with quality and delivering things with innovation and speed. And this is, again, where you want to be. You want to be in a place where you're making things happen, but you know that once you make those things happen, they better damn work. And so this is, you know, your hopes and fears right that. And your outcome, an incredibly positive card, the CEO. Now, the CEO is an interesting card because the CEO is at the top of her game. The CEO has achieved a serious goal, but also you'll notice with this card images, this card has a whole bunch of press photos. This card has representations of power. The traditional emperor holds the rod and the staff. Jamin came up with the great idea of having the rod be a golf club and the staff be a Remy Martin cognac bottle, which in fact is inspired by the traditional, orbs that rulers would wear during coronation times. The bottle is meant to echo that. And, it may seem odd to see a CEO holding a liquor bottle, but it wasn't all that long ago that Elon Musk was smoking up on Joe Rogan. So, people are out there, and that's the point of the CEO cards. The CEO is a public face. The CEO is not just someone hiding in the background, pushing the numbers the way the money director has been. The CEO is public. So Word Crafters is Kaye Booth. Kaye Booth is Word Crafters. And going forward, one solution to the energies you're talking about is that you may have to make that description more explicit. There's a message in here, I think, of not only getting help and getting support, but of also, inspiring some passion. Interestingly, other than your starting point, there's really not a lot of brand cards in here. But I think that's partly because you might have to work on becoming the brand. You've got the product nailed down, but it's time for brand Kaye to be more of a presence. So I think that, you're on a good path. Things seem to be pointing towards something that is really positive. The thing that you can do to accelerate the process is get some real help, figuring out not just the day-to-day stuff, but what people really care about, something to get you from here up to there, get your new energy, get your insight. And when you make your move, do it with an idea that, this is not simply about becoming a publisher. This is about you becoming, I don't know, the way that old time artists or even people like Jeff Koons today, they're running a workshop. Degas didn't paint everything signed by Degas. There were a whole lot of juniors who were working in his studio, helping to flesh out those ideas. You need that kind of a thing. You need some people on the ride with you who are there not just because they're fulfilling a contract. And if you can get them, and you have the opportunity to make something happen. So say the cards.
Yeah, I think that's been kind of one of my problems or hesitations, obstacles. Like I have my blog team, my people that put content onto my blog. Mm-hmm. Robbie is one of them. Jeff is another one. And then I have another guy, Art, that does some content on my blog. And that's basically been my whole team. That's, and I started that because I didn't have the ability to get enough content onto the blog to make it go on my own. And so I started adding people to it, but I'm not paying these people anything. And so every time I ask for a favor or consult with them and try to come up with some ideas or something, I feel a little bit like I'm imposing, because I'm not compensating them in any way for the hard work that they do put into it. Kind of the same thing.
Well, you're giving them exposure.
The conference. I mean,
it's a bit transactional.
Sure.
You're giving them exposure. You're getting their message out. You're giving them a voice. But it may mean that you have to find a different way of doing that. I mean, everybody works for their paycheck, but they also work for more. They work for the ability to make something happen. Maybe there's a more formalized structure that needs to go on with these people who've worked with you. And not all of them will go along for the ride, but maybe you can talk to the people you've worked with before about, bringing them in some kind of a real way. So in the one point, if Word Crafters monetizes, let's say in 5 years, you're doing the same kind of writing conferences like Superstars does, which I'm sure you're very familiar with in Colorado Springs. Let's say that in 5 years,
the Word Crafters. I've been to one, but I want to.
Yeah. So once you have that, you're not going to be able to have a writing career. I mean, talk to Kevin Anderson. He has to write his books and write this conference, and eventually he can't. Now Kevin is stepping back towards more of his writing again. He's got a great team at WordFire that has moved over. Superstars has new people running it, and of course he's always going to be involved. But what is your path out?
Right.
One of my old bosses said something, that I've always taken to heart, which is, never be indispensable, because then you can never be promoted. And in this right now, you are indispensable to this situation. How are you going to get promoted? How are you going to get kicked up, from being in the trenches for every single decision? And the way is to find the people, maybe some of the people on the blog, on the Facebook group, you need to reach out to them and take a more active role. I mean, there's a lot of people on the Facebook group who are just there for themselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all have to, start out. But there are other people who clearly want to engage, who want to be more a part of something. And you're going to be there to put out their books. You're going to be there to make things happen for them. But in return, if they can be part of an organization that you're setting up that right now doesn't look like a lot, but it's like that construction trailer in the product VP. This doesn't look like a lot either, but it has plans for being a very big deal. It could be the next chip factory. It could be the next, place.
Yeah, I had to laugh when that's me.
Yeah, that one right there. Yeah. So, it's situational, it's dealing with things. So that is, where you are, and that has hopes and that has fears, and you need to find other people to help you execute on that. You can't just, the one thing that the cards don't reflect a lot of the times is that they have these symbols of power. They have these symbols of making things happen, but you can't do it alone. You need a lot of people getting involved with you to make those things happen. So that's all that the cards would point to about this reading. And so I hope that that's useful and constructive advice that you can take forward. And
I think it is, and I think it's accurate. I see the truth in that. Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad that we've found some things that you can respond to. We're already at 12:45, and it doesn't look like other people are going to be joining us. So maybe we should, call this a day. But anyway, if you're watching this video later, thank you for stopping by and seeing a little bit of my tarot, business class tarot. I'll hold up the box one more time. You can find it on my website, businessclasstarot.com. Or if you're someone who patronizes a lot of crafters and makers, I also sell it on Etsy. Either way, if you want to check out my cool video though on explaining the business class tarot for 2 minutes, you can find it on my website, businessclasstarot.com. And if you have any questions, you can find me once in a while on the Word Crafters Facebook page. And I've really enjoyed coming to the conference and talking about, I probably should, while I'm here, mention that I'm also a writer. I have one novel, The Demon in Business Class. And Business Class Tarot came out of that as originally just a literary idea, and people kept asking me where they could get the real deck. Well, now you know. And thank you so much, Kaye, for having me and for hosting this awesome conference.
Thank you, Anthony. You've been a trooper. You've been wonderful. You don't have your cards on Amazon?
Oh, they are on Amazon, actually. I forgot to mention the cards are also on Amazon. Gosh, yeah. It's a fairly recent thing. They showed up a few months ago. I started out with my own website right after I did the Kickstarter. But yeah, thank you for pointing that out. The cards are on Amazon as well. So if you're an Amazon shopper, get them there. If you're an Etsy buyer, get them there. And if you're just randomly surfing the internet, businessclasstarot.com. Find me anywhere. And there's also a Facebook page for it too.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate everything you've done. You've been a real putting up with all my technical issues this time around.
Well, we're happy to be here for it. It's very much the internet conferences are kind of like the old school put on a show, and I think that we all step in, and fortunately we at least have the tools to do that. And I'm so glad that you were able to organize us back together this year and to be part of it.
Cool. Thank you. And I hope you'll stop into some of the other sessions.
Sure, absolutely. I saw Paul Kane's keynote this morning. That was really interesting. He was very giving and supportive of his time. If you haven't watched that video yet, Kaye's going to be putting the keynote speech up on her YouTube page, I think you were saying in the video. Plus, he was very gracious and answered questions from us talking about career development and marketing, particularly with a focus on Comic-Cons. And we were part of a great world building session yesterday, moderated by Kevin Anderson, with a lot of great writers talking about their inspiration. I might have even said one or two things. And that's another great video to check out. So yeah, there's plenty to see and do here.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Have a great afternoon.
All right. See you later.
Ciao.